Teofimo Lopez versus Steve Claggett, 12 rounds in the 140-pound division. This is for Teofimo's, I believe, IBF belt. This is a great opportunity for Steve Claggett to come in and cause the upset. Can he do it on the night? That is the question. Let's get into it. Let's start with the champ, Teofimo Lopez. 20 wins, 1 loss, 13 wins by way of knockout. I've said it before, and I will say it again, man. I think when Teofimo Lopez is dialed in and locked in, mentally and physically, I think he's a tough guy to beat on any night. He's talented, good boxing skills, good speed, good power, athletic, sharp, good accuracy. The man does a lot of really good things inside of the ring. He's got all of the makings that has made him successful at 135 to make him successful at 140 and beyond. He's already successful at 140, but I also believe that there is still more that Teofimo can get out of his skill set and his talent. From 2019 to 2020, he went on a very impressive run, in my opinion. He stopped Diego Magdaleno in 7 rounds, dominated his fight against Mayoshi Nakatani. And at the time, Nakatani was an undefeated fighter, but he countered very well in that fight. He showed his power, his speed, accuracy, the quickness, and just the IQ that he was developing in real time. He looked excellent in that fight. Then he goes on to win the IBF lightweight title from Richard Comey, right? And I just saw a clip of this a couple days ago when he hit Richard Comey with that right hand and made Richard Comey's legs collapse and buckle before he closed out the show in the 2 rounds. And after that fight, you knew the potential of Teofimo Lopez. You knew what he could do, but potential is one thing. And for someone to walk into their potential on the big stage in front of the big lights with the pressure, when the pressure is surmounting, it seemed like Teofimo, the person who we knew was this athletic and this skilled, it seemed like he was walking in the right direction to become everything that we know that he can be. And he took that step even further when he did beat Richard Comey. His first title defense was against Vasily Lomachenko, someone who many people right now consider Lomachenko a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter list. Loma's a great test. He's an excellent fighter, though at 135, he's posed some challenges that he has, but he's a tough test for anybody on the night because of the IQ and the skill set and everything that Lomachenko does possess inside of the ring. Early on in their fight, Lopez fought a excellent fight in the beginning part of the fight. He built up a nice and comfortable lead in the first 6 to 7 rounds. In the second half of the fight, it seemed like Lomachenko was starting to crawl his way back into the fight, started to let his hands go a little bit more, started to do what Lomachenko does, and that's take different angles, give you different looks, and try and confuse you about how he's going to find his way in and steal the momentum. But the thing with that fight, man, it took Lomachenko like 6 to 7 rounds before he started to let his hands go. And it's like, you can't give up that many rounds and expect to win the fight, right? We gotta give credit to Teofimo Lopez because, yeah, he was losing a little bit of the momentum, but going into the championship rounds, he just got the thought of like, man, if he can win like 1 round or 2 rounds here in the championship rounds, there's a good chance that he's going to win the fight. And even though things were interesting, man, I thought Teofimo did a good job of not letting the moment slip away from him, and he was able to get the win. Now, many people still thought that it should have been a draw. It is what it is. The outcome is the outcome, and we move forward. But it was definitely going to be an interesting fight, especially if we saw a rematch. But I did like the poise and the maturity that Teofimo was showing, especially when it seemed like he was losing momentum in that fight. Then after that fight, that's when things started to be a little problematic for Teofimo Lopez, especially outside of the ring. It doesn't really matter how strong that a person is in life. Sometimes when you get hit and you get punched with things in life, it can make you function a little bit differently, man. We're only human. And it seemed like a lot of the stuff that was happening outside of Teofimo's life was starting to creep in and affect him inside of the ring, because his performance against George Kambosos was not the greatest performance. Not to mention, there was a lot of things in that fight that was kind of strange. It was delayed a bunch of different times. It was rescheduled. All of these different things kind of made you think like, man, like, is this fight ever really going to happen? And it was just a whole bunch of stuff that was happening, man. And then when the fight started, I was actually glad that the fight happened because it was an exciting fight. Teofimo Lopez went into that fight, and I believe he let his ego get the best of him on the night. Now, things came out after the fight saying, he had some physical issues, and the doctor came out and said some things. But going into the fight, he let his ego get the best of him. He did not respect George Kambosos, and he walked into a shot in that first round, and he found himself on the camp. And whether it was a flash knockdown or not, it was a shot that if he was being more respectful of his opponent, he wouldn't have walked into something like that. He would have seen it coming. And I felt like on the night too, he fought a George Kambosos that was determined, that was showing a lot of heart and a lot of will, and was fighting for something bigger than himself. And sometimes when the skill isn't on par, sometimes those extra things, especially mentally, that internal belief and confidence, that can help a fighter in the fight. And on that night, that's exactly what helped George Kambosos win that fight. Because to me personally, 9 times out of 10, when these two match up and fight, Teofimo beats George Kambosos. But on that night, that was George Kambosos' night, and he came away with the win. Teofimo, after that, moves up to 140 pounds to fight Pedro Campa. And, I thought he looked pretty good, man, considering everything. He looked confident. He looked fast. Power seemed to travel because, he did stop Pedro Campo in the 7th round. Now, that was his introduction fight at 140. Then after that, he goes to fighting Sandor Martin. And this is the thing with Teofimo Lopez sometimes, is sometimes he's very hot and cold. He went from looking pretty good against Pedro Campa to looking very suspect against Sandor Martin in the fight that many people thought he lost the fight. It was not an exciting fight. And when the fight isn't an exciting fight, man, that is a fight that does not work for Teofimo Lopez. But after him not looking great on the night, and many people thought that Sandor Martin won the fight, that was the fight that left us with the quote that made us question where Teofimo was, especially mentally, when he said, man, do I still got it? And that was a question that, we were all trying to figure out. You know what I'm saying? But then in Teofimo fashion, he goes on to fight Josh Taylor. And Josh Taylor was once the undisputed champion at 140. Now, Josh Taylor was coming off a little bit of injury, but at the end of the day, we felt like Josh Taylor was still Josh Taylor, who could give some serious work to Teofimo Lopez. And that was a fight where Teofimo Lopez, man, he looked great. He looked excellent. He dominated the fight from start to finish. Josh Taylor was the bigger man, but it didn't always look like that. It looked like Teofimo really could do whatever he wanted to do whenever he wanted to do it. And it was one of those fights where it just made you say, man, like when Teofimo is locked in, like this is the level of greatness that he can operate on, right? It was an excellent performance, and he looked great. He looked great. And then after that, coming off of a high, he goes to fight Jermaine Ortiz, his most recent fight. And a fight where, Teofimo looked a little bit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was a fight where, and, that was partially because Ortiz came in with a much different game plan than I'm sure that Teofimo expected, right? Ortiz wasn't really trying to engage if he didn't need to. He was trying to do enough to win the fight. He was trying to box on the outside and stay out of danger, kind of make it a boring fight in a way, because Teofimo didn't do the greatest job of cutting off of the ring. So he wasn't able to land his shots consistently. He just had a hard time slowing down Ortiz. Ortiz is, similar to Teofimo in some ways. Like he's strong, he's athletic himself, but he just boxed very well, stuck to his team's game plan. And I felt like Ortiz just fought a very disciplined fight, and he made it a boring fight. A boring fight does not favor Teofimo Lopez that we've seen so far. Teofimo just kind of chased him around. And, he just didn't do the greatest job of using his IQ and his smartness to be able to make the fight a little bit easier and working in his favor. He got the win, but, it again, that hot and cold was up here when he fought Josh Taylor, and then found his way to kind of go down the ladder a little bit, but he did get the win. Now, Teofimo does great when his opponents are coming at him, right? That way he can counter them coming in and use their aggression and momentum against them, especially when they make mistakes. He can fight on the front foot if he needs to, but I don't think that's the area that is his strongest asset. Teofimo is skilled and talented, as I'm sure that you see it as well, but he's hot and cold at times. And so sometimes you're just not sure what you're going to get. Claggett is a very hungry and determined fighter, and he brings a lot of pressure. Which version of Teofimo Lopez are we going to get? We'll see on the night. But let's talk about his opponent, Steve the Dragon Claggett. 38 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws, and 26 wins by way of knockout. When this fight was announced, man, a lot of people were saying, who is this guy that Teofimo Lopez is fighting? A lot of people were going back and forth. And personally, man, I like the fight. Now, I might be a little bit biased because, I know Steve Claggett personally, and I'm happy for the guy, man. I'm happy he's getting this great opportunity, one, to fight for a title. I'm happy he's getting this opportunity to be on the big stage, the bright lights, but I'm also happy for the fact that, man, he's probably going to be making the most money that he's made in his career. As we know, boxing is a dangerous sport, and you're not always compensated the way how you believe a fighter should. So I'm happy that he's getting this opportunity for him. And I think he's just an all-around good guy, good human being, man. So I'm happy that he's getting the opportunity. Now, I'm not going to let my biasness get in the way of doing a factual breakdown as best as I can of this fight, because the reality is Steve Claggett is fighting an uphill battle. And as we know in boxing, in most instances, if you want to become the champ, you have to beat the champ, and it's got to be very apparent, especially if the rounds are close. You have to take the belt from the champ, and very few times, if it's a close fight, you're not always going to get that decision victory. Now, we've seen some judges getting the decision right in the recent weeks, and perhaps a fight this close might swing in his way, but he can't make it close. And he has to go in thinking that I got to stop this guy in order to get the win. So every round is important. If you've never heard of Steve Claggett before, man, if you like, pressure, if you like a lot of volume, if you like a lot of punches, there's a good chance when you see Steve Claggett, you're going to like him because he's constantly in your face. He's throwing a lot of punches, to the head, to the body. He'll find the open target and he's going to hit that open target as much as he can. He doesn't mind staying in the fire. He's tough, durable. He's got 7 losses on his resume. Some happened early on in his career. Sometimes he got the short end of the stick by being the away fighter in close fights that he might have won. And sometimes he just lost the fight. He's only been stopped once before in his career, and he's got wins over Ives Ulis Jr., and he's got wins over undefeated at the time, Petros Ananian, a guy who gave Sabril Matias his first loss on his resume. And when he fought Petros Ananian, he got dropped in the opening round from a left hook. So Claggett had to find his way off of the canvas and come back and to win the fight. So this guy, man, adversity isn't anything new to him. Being the underdog isn't anything new to him, right? He had to fight his way back, and he's beat a bunch of undefeated fighters who he probably should have lost against on paper. But this is why in boxing, you can talk about the fight, but you got to fight the fight to fight who the winner is. Claggett right now is on a 9-fight win streak. He fought once this year against Marcos Gonzalez, and Claggett just broke him down within 2 rounds, right? It was a small ring, and a small ring is perfect for pressure fighters. The small ring was perfect for Steve Claggett on the night, man. And Claggett does a great job when he's in close of not smothering his work from in close. He knows how to slip in the shots that he wants to get off, and it's not just the uncalculated pressure and aggression. No, everything is tactical, everything is strategic, everything is intentional. He knows how to maneuver in small spaces, and he knows how to get his shots off, man. And he's got great conditioning because he can keep this up from round 1 to round 8 to round 10 to round 12. Great conditioning. Claggett is not coming in to play around. He's going to put forth a great fight. I'm not sure it's going to be a walk in the park as many people might think, in my opinion, personally. So who wins? Before I give my pick on this fight, I have something real quick to share. You know, I'm always looking to bring more light, more value, more opportunities for the community. I've been working on a few different things in recent weeks to not just grow the channel, but as I said, to continue to provide as much value as I can to each of you in our community. With that being said, I got some exciting news to share. I'm happy to announce my partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert. It's a great opportunity for you to join some of the best sports books to get the best odds and new user offer. All you have to do is head over to my dedicated page at signupexpert.com/the breakdown to explore a selection of sports books tailored to your region, each with its own unique offerings. So if you want to place a bet this weekend and on this fight and beyond, check out the link to find the best options for you in your region. Every sign up does support the channel, and it helps the channel grow and to expand and to create more opportunities, not just for me, but for our community. You know, I'm always looking out for you guys as best as I can. You can easily find the link in the description below this videos and videos moving forward. So get down there and check it out and find the best option for you. Now, let's get back to the video. Stylistically, this is the type of fight that Teofimo wants to face. Someone who is not going to have to chase around the ring. You know, someone who's going to be right there in front of him with the pressure. Someone who's going to push the pace. Someone who's going to let their hands go, you know, where he could focus more on being a counter puncher and using his athleticism and skill set in his favor. However, you know, which version of Teofimo Lopez are we going to get? Because if this Teofimo Lopez overlooks Steve Claggett, he might get caught with some shots by leaving himself open and not respecting his power. Kambosos didn't need a big shot to score a knockdown. He just needed an overzealous Teofimo Lopez to make a mistake, and he made him pay. So it's possible that Teofimo Lopez could use some of that confident, overconfident version of Teofimo in against him if that's what Teofimo comes in with and just thinks he can walk forward through Claggett's shots. Claggett is in great shape, great conditioning, and he's very consistent, and he's always going to the body. You know, he could do enough in the rounds to outwork Teofimo Lopez. We know what we're going to get from Steve Claggett. Teofimo Lopez can be a wild card at times. I mean, he looked great against Josh Taylor. And he did not look as great against Sandor Martin. But on the other side of things, man, history kind of shows that whenever Teofimo Lopez has a bit of an off performance, he bounces back and puts forth a better showing. And I think that's the version that we are going to see on the night. Claggett has been up against the cards on a couple fights where he should have won those fights, but he didn't get the right end of the stick and he lost the fight. And so, you know, I just think for Claggett to win this fight, he's got to score a couple of knockdowns, maybe even knock Teofimo out. Teofimo has been knocked down, but he hasn't been stopped before. And we know Claggett is up against it here. I think it's going to be a tougher fight than Teofimo thinks, in my opinion. But I like Teofimo Lopez to win this fight by decision. I think we see a much better performance from Teofimo Lopez. And I also think we see a hard-fought, determined, hard-willed, strong-willed, courageous performance from Steve Claggett as well. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear from you. How do you think this one goes? Who do you have winning? Let me know in the comment section below. I don't always get to do all the suggested videos you guys suggest in the comment section below, but if you become a member, those suggested videos rise to the top, and I will do my best to get those done for you that week. Or if you'd like to become a member, just to show love and to support the channel, man, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this long, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.